The message didn't vibrate. It didn't ping. It simply appeared, quietly, brutally, like it had always been waiting to show up. Aurora, we need some distance. Stop contacting us. Completely. A single sentence. No explanation, no softening, no trace of the warmth a family is supposed to have. It hit my screen like a warning flare, bright and cold enough to hollow out the room. I stood in my little apartment. One window, one couch, one life I had built from exhaustion and routine. And the silence grew loud enough to make my heartbeat sound unfamiliar. For a moment, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because there was nothing left in me capable of crying for people who never paused to ask what their choices cost me. Instead of begging, I typed the most controlled line I'd ever written. Understood. They had no idea that my calm was not forgiveness. It was the beginning of the end. Before I take you deeper into the unraveling, tell me what city you're listening from. Somebody out there is going to hear their own story in mine. My name is Aurora Willen, and for as long as I can remember, I have been the person everyone hands their burdens to, quietly, automatically, without wondering if the weight might crush me. I work in billing at a rehabilitation center. Spreadsheets, policy codes, financial reconciliations. Precision is a comfort when emotions fail you. My apartment reflects that same neatness. Warm lights, folded blankets, drawers organized by color-coded receipts. Order was the only kind of safety I had, especially with my family. To them, my role was simple. I pay. My mother, Janice, always said, "Family helps family," in that soft, disapproving tone she used instead of finishing her real thoughts. My father, Leonard, preferred something sharper, a speech about loyalty, duty, and how he didn't raise me to nickel and dime blood. Whenever his jaw tightened, I knew I was expected to cover whatever bill hovered unspoken. And then there was my younger sister, Mira, firecracker, drama magnet, expert at spinning chaos into symphony. She called me cash machine like it was a joke, but everyone knew the joke wasn't funny. Whenever she needed a car payment, a deposit, a miracle, suddenly I was the dependable one. Whenever I said no, the entire family choir jumped in. "You know she needs help. You've always been the responsible one. Don't make things difficult, Aurora." Even the extended family chimed in with guilt disguised as guidance. Only my Uncle Devin never joined the chorus. He just watched, quiet, patient, the one person who never held out his hand. I didn't realize then how much his silence would matter, but it wasn't the message that shattered everything. It was the small cracks that formed right before it, the ones I ignored until they finally swallowed me whole. Looking back, the days before that final message feel strange, like the universe had been whispering warnings I didn't yet know how to hear. Tiny moments that should have rolled off my back suddenly started cutting a little deeper. It began with Mira, because somehow it always did. I had stopped by my parents' place after work. The apartment smelled like garlic and something burning in the oven, and Mira swept into the room wearing a brand new coat, the tag still dangling like a confession she wasn't trying to hide. She tossed her hair, sighed dramatically, and announced she'd found a safer, nicer apartment across the city. She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't need to. "You'll cover the deposit, right?" she asked, scrolling her phone like she was reading off a fast food order. I took a slow breath, the kind you practice in bathroom mirrors before finally standing up for yourself, and said the word I had carried for decades, but rarely used. "No," not harsh, not emotional, just steady. My mother froze, a dish towel hanging from her hand. My father inhaled a long, disappointed breath through his nose, and that was all it took. The air tightened, the atmosphere changed, and suddenly I was the selfish one again. Mira didn't even blink. "Oh, come on, cash machine," she said with a laugh that felt rehearsed. "Don't make this dramatic." I left early, sat in my car with the heater clicking, wondering why protecting my own paycheck felt like committing a crime. But the real fracture came 2 days later. My office phone rang. I answered in my professional voice, calm, clipped, only to hear an overly cheerful landlord thanking me for fixing my parents' little late fee issue and confirming that my automatic payments were still set up for their rent. My automatic payments I didn't authorize. He continued casually, mentioning that my parents had given him my work email and even my schedule, so he could reach me at a good time. I stared at the wall as his words blurred together, heat crawling up my neck. They hadn't just taken my money, they had handed out access to my professional life like it was a party favor. Privacy wasn't something I thought I needed to defend from my own family, but suddenly, I wasn't sure I had any left. I drove straight to their apartment, stood in front of the sagging couch I'd paid for, and for the first time, I asked the question I had swallowed for years. I deserve to know what exactly I'm paying for. My mother's face hardened. "We feel attacked." My father folded his arms. "Don't use that tone with family." And Mira laughed. "Should we tip you now or later?" It wasn't a fight. It was cruelty dipped in casualness. I walked out mid-sentence. If I had known what they were planning next, I might have run instead of walked, because the next message wouldn't just hurt, it would erase me. The message arrived the next afternoon, just as the sun hit that angle where everything in my apartment turned a soft gold and somehow still felt unbearably empty. "We need distance from you, completely. Don't contact us again." It didn't feel like a request. It felt like a verdict. I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. No anger rose, no tears, just a strange settling clarity, cold and steady, like the moment you finally stop treading water because you realize you're too tired to keep pretending you aren't drowning. If this was the distance they wanted, I could honor it fully. An hour later, my phone buzzed again, this time with a name I didn't expect. Uncle Devin. He never called. Texting was rare. If he reached out, it meant something real had happened. When I answered, his voice was lower than usual, almost careful. Aurora, I'm at your parents' place. I sat up. For what? A pause. A quiet breath. They asked me to help them pack. Pack. The word hit me harder than the text. Pack. What? I whispered. Everything, he said gently. Clothes, dishes, photos, furniture. They're moving out. My mouth went dry. Of course they were. They weren't just cutting contact. They were uprooting themselves, disappearing like I had been nothing more than a loose end they didn't want to tie. Devin hesitated, then added, I'll make sure anything with your name on it gets returned. Don't worry. He wasn't taking sides. He never did. He just dealt in truth. And somehow, the truth stung more than any insult. After the call, I opened the drawer I'd organized for years, the one full of color-coded receipts, rent, utilities, medical bills, groceries, transportation, subscriptions, every invisible thread I'd used to hold their world together. I spread them across the floor, green, yellow, blue, red, purple, like a map of my own slow disappearing. I sat there, knees pulled in, and finally saw clearly what I had always rationalized as family. It wasn't love, it wasn't support, it was dependence disguised as devotion, a structure built on me, held up by me, while they never once turned around to see whether I was still standing. And yet, it didn't break me, it freed me. Later that night, my friend Elias knocked softly on my door. Not loud, not urgent, just a gentle tap from someone who understood broken things. They sent you something, he said as he stepped in. I handed him my phone. He read the message once, his jaw tensed, but his voice stayed soft. You didn't deserve that, Aurora. For the first time in years, I believed someone. I'm done, I whispered. He sat beside me on the floor, surrounded by years of proof. Then start with one thing, he said. Show me what you've been carrying. Rehook. The next morning, I would do something my family never expected. I would finally put everything in writing. And once I did, nothing would be the same. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity so sharp it almost scared me. My phone was face down on the nightstand, the way you place something that has hurt you one too many times. When I finally flipped it over, the family group chat had exploded overnight. Dozens of messages stacked on top of each other like fallen dominoes. Mira, where are you? Why aren't you answering? Mom, stop being dramatic, Aurora. Dad, you're acting childish. We'll handle everything ourselves. I scrolled back to the original message. We need distance from you. Don't contact us again. Funny how quickly people change their tone when silence becomes the thing they can't control. I walked to my kitchen table, spread out the color-coded receipts I'd sorted the night before, and began taking photos. Not shaky, not emotional, just precise. Rent, utilities, medical bills, transportation, phone plans, grocery supplements, every invisible favor I had kept secret just to keep our house from collapsing. Then, with a steady breath, I opened the group chat. My message went out as a single block of quiet finality. I'm honoring your request for distance. Attached is a summary of every payment I've been covering for the last 7 years. Each one will end on the dates marked. Please transfer all accounts into your own names within 30 days. I attached the photos one by one. Send, send, send. Then I wrote, I'll be canceling all direct deposits today. For 2 silent minutes, nothing. Then the panic hit. Mom, Aurora, what is this supposed to mean? Dad, money is not the same as family. Don't weaponize it. Mira, you're sick. You're doing this to humiliate us. Typing bubbles swarmed the screen like insects. Mom again. We meant distance from your attitude, not from you. I replied simply, your message said don't contact us. I am honoring exactly what you asked. Dad sent a long paragraph with no punctuation, a flood of fury trying to guilt me back into my place. Mira switched tactics, her favorite move. I can't afford to move right now. I'll be in a dangerous area. If something happens to me, it'll be your fault. I stared at the message, steady, unshaken. I hope you stay safe, but I'm not responsible for your lifestyle. They called over and over, every name on my screen lighting up like an emergency siren. I refused to answer. Finally, a single private message arrived from the only person who had never taken advantage of me. Uncle Devin, I'm dropping off a few boxes tonight. They belong to you. They didn't even open them. Boxes belonging to me. I wasn't prepared for what he would bring with him, because inside those boxes were things that would expose the truth I had been blind to for years. And once I saw it, there was no going back. That night, when the knock came, it wasn't frantic like my family's calls had been. It was a single, steady tap, the kind someone makes when they respect your space. Uncle Devin stood in the doorway, holding 3 stacked boxes, his jacket dusty from moving furniture. They tried to rush me, he said, told me not to bother with anything that wasn't theirs, but I saw your name on a few things. He set the boxes down gently, as if placing pieces of a person he didn't want to break further. Inside were things I had bought them over the years, unopened kitchen towels, a blender still in its packaging, a new Wi-Fi router computer they'd never installed. All the small, quiet attempts I had made to make their life easier. Ignored, untouched, forgotten. Devin watched the realization wash over me. You did a lot more for them than they ever admitted, he said softly. Don't let them twist this. Twist it. That was exactly what they were already trying to do. Because the moment he left, the group chat erupted again. Mom, how could you let him see our private business? Dad, you embarrassed us. We'll never forgive you for this. Mira, I hope you're proud. You ruined everything. I didn't respond. I set my phone aside and poured a glass of water instead. The simplest act suddenly felt like reclaiming something I hadn't realized I'd lost. My own oxygen. 10 minutes later, anger turned into pleading, just as predictable as tides. Mom, please don't do this. Your father hasn't slept. Dad, I worked all my life. You owe us respect. Mira, if you cancel the phone plan, how am I supposed to call work or get help? I answered only once. I'm not discussing money anymore. A beat of silence followed, long enough for me to hear the hum of my refrigerator, the quietest sound, yet somehow louder than their entire chorus. Then Mira tried one last angle. I don't understand why you're so cold now. I replied, you told me not to contact you. I'm honoring what you said. This time, no one responded. Hours later, extended family began chiming in. You could have handled this better. Family sacrifices. This is extreme. I didn't take the bait. Instead, I uploaded a simple document, a list of financial resources, rental assistance, budgeting templates, utility contacts. At the bottom, I wrote, you're capable. You always were. Silence followed. A different kind of silence. A door closing, not slamming. At 2:07 a.m., one final message arrived from my mother. If you do this, you're dead to me. I stared at the words for a long moment, not because they hurt, but because they didn't. I'm sorry you feel that way, I typed, and set the phone face down. The next morning, I changed passwords, removed cards, ended subscriptions, cut every thread tying their lives to mine. Each confirmation felt like undoing a knot I'd lived with for years. Later that week, sitting across from my therapist, I admitted the truth. I feel lighter and terrified. She smiled gently. Peace can feel dangerous when your normal has always been chaos. That night, Elias came over with takeout and quiet understanding. He didn't tell me what I should feel. He just sat beside me, knees touching mine, grounding me. I'm proud of you, he said, and for the first time in my life, I believed it. The weeks that followed weren't loud. They were peaceful. Quiet mornings, cooking dinner for myself, walking without bracing for a crisis, discovering that silence isn't punishment. Sometimes it's healing. I learned that love without respect is not love, and boundaries are not cruelty. They're survival. If you've ever had to step away from people you love just to save yourself, you are not alone. And if this story found you at the right time, you know exactly why. And that's where Aurora's story leaves us. Not broken, not abandoned, but standing in a peace she fought for, earned, and finally let herself feel. If this story hit a nerve, if you've ever carried more than anyone realized, if you've ever had to choose yourself even when it hurt, then you're exactly who we tell these stories for. This is Baddie Fiction, where real emotions meet real stories, where survivors become main characters, and where every ending leads to a stronger beginning. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your own experience if you're brave enough. And if this resonated with you, hit follow, hit share, and stay locked in, because the next story might be the one you needed all along. Welcome to BADDIE FICTION, where every story reminds you